Hello and welcome to Learning Final Cut Pro version 10.2 with me, Adam Loretz, from the Filmmakers Workshop. In this video we're going to take a look at three things: creating a library, where to store your media, and importing your media. Before you import your media, there is a way that you can begin media managing at the Finder level outside of Final Cut Pro 10, and that is by tagging your clips. It's really simple. You can place related clips into a folder, and during the import process you can choose for Final Cut Pro to use the folder name as a keyword collection. Secondly, you can create a new tag and add that to any clip. Here I've selected some short films I produced for body development. This can be really useful for camera persons delivering to a Final Cut Pro editor, or if you have an edit assistant. Let's jump back to Final Cut Pro and run through the import process, starting with building your library. With every new Final Cut Pro project, you'll start by creating a library. A library is a place where Final Cut stores or references your media and related files, and it can be configured in two different ways. Let's take a look at the options. First off, you can create a new library, and automatically Final Cut will by default create an enclosed encapsulated folder known as a bundle, in which you will store all of your media files. Now if, like me, you want to keep everything neat and tidy and do a lot of short form projects, this can be really useful. However, the other option can also be useful, especially if you're working on long form projects in a group environment or need to edit on the road. Let's go over to the inspector. Here you can specify where Final Cut Pro stores your files by clicking on the Modify Settings button. The key difference here is that your media is being stored outside of the Final Cut Pro bundle. Final Cut Pro is just referencing your media through an alias. Aliases are just tiny files which point to their original media. This is really useful if you've already got a lot of previously imported assets on your hard drive, because adding them to your bundle will double the amount of hard drive space used and leave less for your render files. As well as your media, you can also choose to store Final Cut Pro's cache and backups in locations of your choice. In your cache, Final Cut Pro stores things like your render files and analysis files where you've chosen to stabilize footage, etc. Keeping a library file to a few megabytes means that you can easily email libraries to other editors, or use them yourself if you're editing on the road. So, the type of library you choose will depend on the particular job criteria and the environment you'll be editing in. With your library configured, it's time to import your media. The simplest way to import your media is to click on the large downward-facing arrow in the middle of the browser. Or if you've already got media in your browser, just go to the downward-facing arrow in the middle navigation bar, just over there on the left. With the import window open, down the left-hand side, you can see all of your devices, media cards and favourite locations, where the media you want to import is stored. On this particular occasion, I have footage from a Sony RX10 camera card called Untitled, so I'm going to click on that. You can choose to import videos, photos, or all clips. This time I'm just going to choose videos. I've got a lot of clips here, but I just want from numbers 2 to 34. So to make this selection, I just click on 2, scroll up to 34, and shift click, and that will select that specific range. Now say for instance I didn't want some clips from within that selection, I could deselect any of them by pressing the Command key and clicking, or reselect them with Command and click. So it's a really easy way to make a specific selection. With your selections made, come over to the right hand side of the import window and ensure that your selection will be imported to the correct project. By default, Final Cut Pro automatically creates new dated events, which in my experience is the best way to reference your files. Of course, you can always create a new event file by clicking on the radio button below and entering a new event name. If you're importing from a media card, Final Cut Pro will only give you the option of copying to library. However, if you're importing from a hard drive, you will be given the option to leave files in place. By choosing the latter option, you can help to keep your Final Cut Pro bundle down to a few megabytes and just reference your media. Below that you have transcoding, which can be useful if you've got a lot of compositing or grading to do, in which case I would suggest optimizing your media. If you're doing a music video or a live event with multiple cameras, then I'd suggest using proxies. Similarly, if you're using a 4K camera and only have a modest powered system, then I would also suggest creating proxy media. Just get through the edit, and then you can always toggle using the view switch to your media original files before export. Below that we have keywords, which I've already pointed out you can configure at the Finder level to assist your media management and speed up the process before importing and editing. Besides these options, I don't ever click Find People. If you know you've got some issues with your colour, then you could choose Analyze for Balanced Colour, and under Audio it can be worth clicking on Separate Mono and Group Stereo Audio. From my experience, fixing audio and colour is something you should concern yourself with after the import process. Finally, you can make a camera archive from the import window. This could be useful if you're a camera person just handing off files to a client, or if this is just the standard operating procedure for the business you are working for. As an independent editor, I don't use this feature, rather I make a full copy of each project, which I check and put on a backup drive. I then copy the entire project to an edit drive, knowing that I have all of my files on at least 2 drives. This also allows me to easily scrub through any clips using Final Cut Pro's interface and find any media quickly. Without further ado, we have made a clip selection and chosen where we want Final Cut Pro to store the clips, so time to press Import Selected. So here you can see Final Cut Pro going through the import process. It adds these little white empty circles which show that these clips haven't been imported. The one that is being imported currently, you can see, has a little clock wipe effect. As soon as they're imported, the little circles disappear, and now you can start editing it. Now you could start editing straight away even whilst it's importing, although to be honest that always affects the performance of the machine, and it can cause problems if your computer decides it's not happy about the amount that you're taxing it, and if it crashes, it's just going to be a nightmare. You may as well just hang back, have a cup of tea and consider the edit. Personally, I like to pre-visualize my edits and find that really helps speed things up when I'm actually faced with the Final Cut Pro interface filled with clips and unlimited creative options. After the video has been imported, Final Cut Pro will render the waveforms so that you can see the audio of any of your clips and help you make your edit decisions. One quirk of Final Cut Pro 10 is that once you've imported from a media card, you cannot eject the media card from your system whilst the application is open. Don't worry, just quit Final Cut Pro 10, drag the media cards to the trash or press the eject key on the keyboard, and restart Final Cut Pro. If you have multiple cards, do the whole procedure again until your media is imported. Well, that's it for this episode. Look out for the next episode in which we'll begin the process of editing. Yippee! If you're looking to get to grips with Final Cut Pro 10.2, subscribe to this series where I'll be sharing with you over 15 years experience as a shooter and editor. So subscribe to our YouTube channel, check us out on Facebook and Twitter, where we'll be posting links to interviews with top filmmakers, the latest filmmaking news and details of our filmmaking events. I'm Adam Loretz from the Filmmakers Workshop. Thanks for watching.